The more a family builds, the more complex their decisions become. And many families, most families, are not prepared for that. I'm Garrick Francis. This is the Inheritance to Income podcast, where we help families, founders, and leaders move from legacy by default to legacy by design, so that it's crafted with wisdom and not chaos. If you're building something for the next generation, but you're not quite sure what comes next, you're in the right place. I'm your legacy advocate. Let's talk about it. Today, we're going back inside the Legacy Bridge Roundtable. But this conversation's a bit different. This is not about getting started. This is about what happens when you've already built something, when there are multiple generations involved and decisions have not been clearly defined, when there's a lot already at stake, and when there are sometimes a lot of people in charge. Because this is where things start to break down, not because of money, but because of unclear authority, unspoken expectations, and misaligned relationships. So as you listen to these clips, I want you to keep this in mind. If the center of your family system changed tomorrow, what would hold everything together? Let's talk about it. So in the first clip I want you to listen for, there are a lot of families operating this way. You've built something successful over 10, 15, 20, even 30 years. And you've done it by grit, by blood, sweat, and tears, by your investment, by being the center of gravity and making sure everything gets done. And so you know how to do stuff. You're smart. You've gotten it done one way or another, and you've built something successful. But now the question is, what comes next? And so let's think about how that gets framed.
One of the great things is that they took the step to come, right? And so with that toe in, you sort of squeeze the whole body in the picture, right?
Get them all through the door.
That's right. But, because what we know is that they may be the best architect ever, but we're going to give them conversation that they don't necessarily have, right? And so, but we also have to respect and honor who they are. And I think that's part of the reality is so often people come to us and they know that they're really smart, but we're smart in a different way. But we have to make sure that we are honoring and respecting each relationship. And so that we can talk to them in a way that's not overwhelming, that's not over their head, but making sure that we connect with them about the things that are most important. And that's the way to get in.
So I think it's really interesting that Aimee said smart in a different way. So on the surface, everything may look fine, but underneath, that's where people are holding information tightly, or they're carrying certain assumptions, or they're avoiding deeper conversations, and that means the system is fragile. So you want to find the right counselors, the right people. You want to have those unaccustomed conversations to prepare you. And so then you're talking about all that you have being protected. And you stick that toe in, and then you get the other family members in, and you begin to work through creating the right systems that will allow you to create generational impact and generational influence and pass on generational wealth and generational work ethic. There are a lot of things that go into it. And so as we start to think about that, we really then start to think about the multi-generational complexities and what it takes to deal with a number of different generations. And so in this next clip, as families grow and complexity grows with them, that takes on a little bit of a different system.
No, it's actually not. Because as estate planning folks, that's our world. We're supposed to be speaking about not just you, but we're speaking about the impact of the people that you love. And so the people who are older than us, as well as the people that aren't even yet to be, we should be having that conversation in a holistic way, so that it's not just whatever today's date is. But we should be looking long term, right? Having those conversations. How do we build the structure? Because again, if we're thinking multi-generationally, we got to be talking multi-generationally. And that also helps to open it up, because what we know is that they've gone from surviving to thriving, but they're not necessarily thinking about how do we create the structure that goes multiple generations.
And so different generations bring different experience, different wounds, different strengths, different levels of readiness, different assumptions about what should happen next, different understandings of what today's business culture, business environment, and what things are going to look like in the future. And that complexity is not a problem by itself. The problem is when that complexity exists without clarity. And so bringing the generations together, having the unaccustomed conversations, having an advisor who is able to speak to different generations, having a peacemaker in the family who's willing to convene everyone around the idea of generational influence, generational impact, generational wealth, legacy design is very, very important. And so as you do that, then we start to think about, okay, so now that we've got the family talking, we can really start talking about our business. And for those who have built something, who have built a small business or built a medium business or built it into an extremely large business, and you're starting to think about transition, it doesn't just affect family relationships. Small businesses operate within two systems, the family system and the business system. And a lot of times those are very much intertwined. And so as we think about that, we had a discussion about what it means for a small business owner to think about succession and transition.
Business and pass it down with family. What are you intentionally doing now to make that happen? Are they involved? Do you talk to them at all about any of the decisions you make related to the business? Do you talk about what the day to day of the business looks like? Right. My parents own laundromats, and their kids are lawyer, accountant, and teacher. Have you talked? I know that they have, but I'm just saying for the people. Like, have you talked to them about like what the day to day of the business looks like and what the value of the business is? Have you given opportunities for the kids to do something within the business to show any interest? If you have them build upon that, have those conversations, directly have those conversations. I plan to retire in X amount of years. I need to decide what's going to happen to the business. Is it something you're interested in? If so, I will mentor you, I will help you get there. If not, other options are, what about employees who have worked for you for a very long time, who have shown loyalty to the business, to the values that the business is a reflection of? Could you see one of them, right? So those buy sell agreements, right? Could that include the employees that work there right now? I remember I had a client who was a dentist and owned a business.
And so Shakisha's example here is really good. A lot of business owners assume that they built something successful. And because they did, it'll naturally continue successfully. It'll naturally be handed over. They believe that they already have the standard operating procedures in place that will naturally take it into the next generation. But you need to audit that. You need to take a look at it and see if that's true, because succession is not automatic. If the systems and the roles and the authority is not clear, then what you've built through so much effort can be lost through confusion. And so you have to think about, are my children interested in the business? Do they work in the business now? If not, do they want to come into the business from where they are? Have they gone outside and gained skills that would be useful here? So you have to have those unaccustomed conversations. You have to think about, well, will my family be investors in the business if it continues? Do I have employees who would be in line to buy the business from the family or to become a partner with the family in the business? There are a number of excellent opportunities to preserve the business for generational growth. We're now in the midst of the great wealth transfer and the silver tsunami. In the silver tsunami, there are millions upon millions of businesses that will change hands, and unfortunately some will simply go out of business. Not all will be sold, not all will be successful. But to increase the opportunity for success, we can put in place systems that will create clarity for generations. And that's what we hope to be able to do. Now, if you've heard something as part of this episode that hit home, that resonates with you, we really hope you'll hit that like and subscribe button. So many people watch YouTube videos, I was shocked, and don't actually subscribe. But it really helps us to broaden the audience and to get the message out. And please share it with others within your community or your sphere of influence. And while we have a moment, we'd also like to have a word about our sponsor. I hope you're enjoying this episode of Inheritance to Income. Inheritance to Income is brought to you by Reese Francis Studios. Whether you're preserving something for the future or creating something for today, photography, videography, and editing. Check out the link in the show notes below or check reesefrancisstudios.com. And so as we get back to looking at a number of the clips, we talked about small business, but one of the other things that really can create interesting family dynamics is talking about the house, grandma's house, granddad's house, the house you grew up in. If there are multiple siblings, something it shows up as very tangible can also create a great amount of conflict, and you have to know kind of what you want to do with it. So Aimee talks a little bit about, do you keep the house? Do you sell the house? What happens to Big Mama's house?
So I think it depends, right? So I think that we should not have a vacant house. That's the part that's struggling, that people, if no one wants to live and they don't want anybody to rent it, that's a problem, right? And so that we've had, much like Shakisha said, we've had people who say, oh, I have this house, I don't want anyone to live it, but I don't want it sold. And I says, well, how are we going to maintain it? What does that look like? I also don't want just someone to come and live there for free. Like if a child is going to live there and they're not employed, and they're not contributing, that's a whole nother issue. And so having all of the conversations to bring it all the way through. And then there's also the converse conversation where we have multiple owners who have cousins that we've broken out. We can bring all the land together to create land trusts. So there's such strategic planning that what we know is land. God's not making more of it, so let's be thoughtful about it. If I don't ever want to live in Poughkeepsie, New York ever again, pulling the equity out, buying it in Malibu, does that make sense? But having that our trust or the language shouldn't be so narrowly focused that it doesn't give opportunities or options for people to be able to build multi-generational wealth.
I think it's really important to remember that it's never just a house. It's an asset, it's equity, it's memories. There are a lot of things that go into the properties that are part of someone's succession and someone's estate. And so that house represents sacrifice and fairness and responsibility and identity and community and so many other things. And when families have never defined what those things really mean, then that property becomes immense pressure. And so taking the time to sit down and talk about what that property means and what it could do for the next generation is really important. So it might be that you keep the property in the house and you put it in some type of trust, as Aimee mentioned, and so that individuals can use it. Or it may be that you sell it and buy other properties, other places, and so the legacy still continues from what was being built. But there are a lot of different questions you need to ask before making those kinds of decisions. And the great thing is, most cases, most jurisdictions, you have that time. The key is just to make sure that you have put in place a structure that allows for it, that makes sure that things are handed down not just by word, but by structure and by legality as well. And so as you begin to then take care of those specific pieces, you're allowed to then think generationally. What happens 3 generations out? What will they know? What is the vision that we have for that? And so you want to then be able to think about the vision. What does it really look like to move from reaction to design?
It's all part of the conversation and the story and the visioning, right? So often that we know that I have these 2 children, and then having the conversation about what does their life look like, but what do their kids look like? And so having that conversation, also, what does it look like if they don't have any children? Planning accordingly. And so creating the vision, having the people work with you to walk it through is really the fun part. I say all the time, I have the best job in the wide world because I get to help people think about that third generation out. And we talk about in broad brush, what does that look like and what are the possibilities? And then if and buts, right? So that if things don't go the way we want them to go, what are the options?
Wow. And so that's where legacy thinking really has to expand. Most people plan for this life, they plan for the next step, but they don't design their legacy and plan for the next generation. And so it's not about what just happens to me, what happens to us today. It's not just what happens after me. It's what becomes possible because I am intentional today. What generational impact and generational influence and generational wealth will my family be able to grow because of what I am doing today or continuing today? Because of what I am planning today and planting today that will grow well into the future. Those are the types of decisions and the way we have to broaden our thinking to take a broader view, as a number of people have said, of what legacy really means and how do we get there from where we are today. Those are the plans that we really, really want to be able to put in place. And so as we got towards the end of the Legacy Roundtable episode, I was able to ask each of the guests. I was able to ask Shakisha Morgan, the legacy counselor, and Tacy Paul Roby, who is with Tri-Bridge Partners Financial, and Aimee Griffin of Life and Legacy Law, what their biggest three takeaways were. And so I think it's really important to just take a moment to hear what they had to say, that once clarity begins to emerge, how it moves beyond just the conversation. And so let's start with Tacy's final takeaway.
Write down your values. Write down what's important to you. Is it freedom? Is it family? Is it education? Write it down on a piece of paper and stick it in front of your on your computer or wherever you look, so that when you're making your financial decisions and your relationship decisions, you're grounded on that piece of paper and what's important to you.
Write it down. It's very important. As Tacy says, take time today. One of the actions you should take today, and potentially every day, several days, is to write down what's important. To write, not because paper solves everything, not because if it's never written down, it's usually never clever enough to transfer, but a lot of families have love and a lot of families have intentions, but a lot of families don't have the plan because nobody wrote it down. So take time to write down each of the steps. Answer the questions, the three easy things. Answer the questions about what's important to you, who you love, what matters. Write down the history of the business that the family has created. Why did it get started? Where did it get started? How did it grow successfully? What are the important relationships along the way that were built? What's the core? What are the pillars upon which it stands? Those are very important things to be able to hand down. And so take that time today, if nothing else, to write it down. Then the final takeaway for Shakisha tells us about how to look out for that multi-generational aspect of legacy design.
Legacy is building and bridging. That's it. I think when people think about legacy, they think about the building. I need to build a business. I need to build a better income. I need to get a better job. I need to build my financial portfolio. Wonderful. That is an essential part of it. Mountain one, as you said. But then we need to bridge, because wealth is not multi-generational if there's not a bridge between the generations, right? If we don't build a bridge, then every generation has to flounder its way back up to building. So if you want to talk about legacy, if you want to be intentional about legacy, if you want to be, if you want to have a legacy that matters to you and is aligned with your values, focus both on building and bridging, not just one or the other.
Build, building and bridging. It's a beautiful metaphor, and it works so well because you're builders. It's what you do, and that's a great thing. And you should continue to build throughout this life. But as Shakisha mentions, if you build it and you have no way to bridge it, no one can get there, no way to transfer it to future generations, then we have a problem. Then the next generation is stuck rebuilding what you've already built. Sure, they can look across the chasm, they can look across the generations and see what was built and try and recreate that. But what if you bridge? And so they already have it as the foundation upon which to build. And then they continue to build and grow from there. That's true generational impact and generational influence and generational wealth, when the next generation doesn't have to start over because inheritance came with instructions, because your legacy was designed, because there were clear authority and roles and responsibilities there. And so now, if we know that we're thinking generationally, if we're dedicated to writing it down, if we know that we want to not only build it, but to also bridge it, to build the bridge to the next generation, to get there, Aimee offers something about how to do it in her final takeaway. Here we go.
Safety in a multitude of counsel. And I think the fact that there is, you don't ever want to be the smartest person in the room. You want to have a circle of support that helps you do and be and have vision and has guidelines to help you grow for the next generation, right? But we can't do it in our own head because we will talk. I'm the best excuse maker for me ever, can justify anything. But if I have people who will hold me accountable and help me that vision and dreams and goals that are greater than myself, I'm thankful for those, the brilliance that is the guidelines and the multitude of counsel.
There's safety in a multitude of counsel. Families don't have to carry this alone. This work is made better through wise counsel, not just because professionals are smart in a different way and because they have information, but because wise counsel helps people to see what they can't see on their own. Families get stuck when everything stays inside one mind, one voice, one family. And having wise counsel, support and accountability and perspective and structure allows you to think beyond the front door, allows you to think beyond this generation. It allows you to open up a world of possibilities for you to be able to continue to grow. And so there's safety in wise counsel because no one person should have to bear it all, should have to interpret all of this complexity alone. So that's where starting those conversations with wise professionals and asking those questions. I think, as Shakisha said in the episode, you could Google it and you could get the information everybody else gets. But if you take time to write down what matters, to create those SMART goals, to think about to think about the next generation, you'll get something designed just for you. And that's true in families. That's true in business, and that's true in succession. And so the rewind hopefully has been helpful. And what you've just heard is what most families experience, but rarely define. They feel the tension and they feel the confusion and the misalignment. They bear the brunt of those responsibilities when someone passes away or something happens, but they don't always name the system behind it. And so when you have time to name it, you should. Without the system, it becomes default. And legacy by default, it's unclear decisions, it's fractured relationships, it's reactive outcomes. Legacy by design looks like clarity, looks like alignment. It looks like defined decision making, clear roles. And if you've built something, if your family is growing, if there's more at stake than just money, then it's not something you can just leave to chance. What decisions have we not clearly defined? Start with that question. Have that unaccustomed conversation today, because legacy is not just what you leave. It's what you prepare others to carry. And so I hope this episode, this rewind, has given you food for thought, and that you're able to take just one action today, because inheritance may begin by default, but legacy requires design. Thank you for the time that you have granted me. God bless.